Tonight our special guest is well-known broadcaster Doug Harvey. Anybody who has played Lotto will remember Doug as the first ever Lotto presenter when it all began. We welcome Doug Harvey as our special guest on The Beat Goes On. In the studio tonight, Doug Harvey.
Jared, it's a pleasure, mate.
All
nice
the
to
way.
see you.
Oh, well, it is.
Again,
nice to,
been a long time.
Well, we ran into each other the other night, and you're
Yes.
off to Australia very soon. You're just over here on a fleeting visit, and I thought, Doug, you've got to come on the program because you are a baby boomer extraordinaire.
I'm certainly a baby boomer.
You were born 1952.
1952. Makes me 61.
Wow. Did you ever think we'd get to this age, Doug? Did you think the day was going to come?
I thought it would. Hopefully it would come. Yes, indeed. I look forward to many, many more years. But I try and stay fit and healthy and look forward to more years. But 61, it seems it's been a long road in broadcasting since the age of 19 when I started. Yeah. And haven't been out of it my whole life. It's been a wonderful journey.
That's a good voice you've got there, isn't it?
I was blessed with a good voice from my dad.
Yeah.
He had a good voice and he could sing.
Yeah.
And entertain with a harmonica. And the voices made me a lot of money commercially, thank goodness.
Just for our viewers, some of them. There may be only one left in New Zealand that doesn't know who Douglas Harvey is, Doug. So
I think if they're under 35, they'd struggle a bit.
They'd struggle, yeah. But we're talking about Chief Executive Officer at Radio I, radio announcing, and of course your Lotto experience. You've had a wonderful and varied career, haven't you?
Yes.
Should we start at the right at the
beginning? Well, yeah, sure.
Whereabouts in New Zealand were you born?
In Auckland, born in Auckland, and in fact in Pakuranga.
Pakuranga, wow, great suburb.
Fantastic in those days, and of course the Pakuranga Town Centre, which is still alive today. But it was the greatest and best thing out. But I remember doing my Herald delivery rounds in the streets of Pakuranga, and going to the river to the Pakuranga College as a student, and then on to university for some time and studied psychology. And
you've got me worked out then, haven't you?
Well, I studied psychology for a couple of years, and in a holiday break, I met a guy called Graham Brown, who many would know in Auckland as an engineer, technical guy, and Graham took me along to Radio I when it was broadcasting only in the mornings and only at night on the 1ZM frequency,
Very early
the
days.
then 1YD frequency of 1250, I think it was then. And I went along and was very, very interested in broadcasting, but of course he was a technician and he showed me all about the technical stuff, and I went along and helped them out a bit, just as a youngster.
And that turned into a full-time job at Radio I.
It did, very quickly, because they gained their full-time licence at the same time, and I ended up being the number 4 technician and learned a lot about the technical side of radio. And it wasn't until one night we were doing midnight till dawn transmission checks with a noise and distortion meter to the transmitter. I won't bore you with that technical stuff. And we're pulling the program on and off the air while they played tone. We played tone. I was at one end, at the studio end, and a guy called Phil Johnson was at the other end, out on Botany Road, Howick, which was a farm then, for those that know what it is today. And we finished at about 3 o'clock in the morning, what we'd done, taking our notes down for the then Post and Telegraph people. And I put the program back onto air, put the plugs back in, and the announcer at the time was unconscious. And the record was in what we call the wash. Remember the wash on the record? The needle was in the middle of the record. Really? He was unconscious. I went into the studio to find out what was going on, and he was slumped over the desk in the studio, and finding it very hard to breathe, couldn't hardly say a word. So I rang the emergency phone number and got an ambulance, and he was taken away. It turned out he had a collapsed lung and was kept in for observation, etc. So I had to sit there and play the records until the breakfast announcer turned up. And I sat there for the first hour, played records, vinyl in those days, of course, and played around. Then I thought, well, I better speak.
I better say something.
at least tell the time.
Yeah.
So I opened my mouth up and started talking, and then found it an easy thing to do. This is not hard at all.
Yeah.
And within about an hour or so, the phone rang. It was the boss. And wanted to know who I was on the air.
Who is this person on the air?
Who are you, and where's Selwyn? Who was the announcer who had the collapsed lung. And I told him what had happened, and he said, "You're doing a darn good job. Can you stay? I'll be there in half an hour to work. I want to have a talk to you."
Yeah.
And he came in and he said, "Look, we've been thinking of cutting back the technical staff. But he said, we need someone in the on-air presentation team, and we think you're it." Within a week, I went on to drive time. in Auckland.
That's
And
great.
that was just, I had the curtains drawn in the studio, and I was so nervous. I can remember that day quite clearly. Quite clearly. And from there it went on. And I was offered to go somewhere else for double the wages, and then
Double the wages.
double the wages again, and it just snowballed that from there. Yeah.
And then we'll jump a bit, but you then ended up being the chief executive officer of.
Well, yes, that
Radio
was
1.
some time later, of course. I mean, I'd gone through other various areas of management in radio then, music director, program director, and station manager, and then finally on the board of Radio I in Auckland, and that was for 5 years. I did that, and that taught me an awful lot, and I loved every minute of it. I loved the fact that I could understand the young guy coming in for the first time and help him out, and everyone else on the way, you know, and always told all the staff at every meeting, please aspire for my job, because you can get it, you know, it can be done. And I had a wonderful team in those days, and I still keep in touch with many of them.
So in the end, Doug, can you count on your fingers of your hand how many radio stations did you work with in New Zealand?
It would have been Radio I, 1XX, 3ZB, 3ZM in Christchurch, and then on SPTV down in Christchurch. That's my first television foray, was in Christchurch. When there was Channel 2 just came on the air, as South Pacific Television. And they only broadcast, transmitted in Christchurch and Auckland at the time. And I was at the Auckland, Christchurch end. Moved to 1ZH Hamilton from there, and then into 1ZM in Auckland, then to Radio Hauraki, then to Radio I.
Great. Wow.
I ended up where I started.
Radio I. But one of the biggies for Doug Harvey was being the Lotto presenter. Tell us that story.
It was quite strange. I was chief executive at the station at Radio I at the time, and I got a phone call from a friend in television and said, we're having trouble finding someone to do a thing called the Lotto draw.
It just started, hadn't it?
Hadn't started. It was about to come on air. It hadn't started. They'd rehearsed and auditioned a number of people, and they thought they'd found a girl to help out, but they didn't find that. They still wanted a male presenter. So I said, would you come down and audition for us? So I went down to their studios, sat in front of a little handheld camera basically on a tripod, and they said, just do the Lotto draw, call out numbers. So I did it like, oh, it's 22, 2 ducks in the lake, quack, quack. And so I said, no, not a bingo, this is Lotto. I said, I've never seen Lotto. Well, you just call the numbers out. I said, okay, I won't make it so interesting. So I joked around and just pretended I was doing a Lotto draw, you know, and the fourth number out's number 14, and I hope this is, you've got this number, and just did a personality thing, and walked out thinking, I'm never going to get this, you know. Yeah. And then I get a phone call the next day to say they want me to come down and have a chat with them.
Wow.
And they signed me up there and then.
And I'm Doug Harvey, and we'd like to wish you and Channel 2 a very Merry Christmas.
And all the best for 1990, a very special year. Go to it.
That was a great gig, wasn't it? That was a marvellous gig.
Fantastic gig. I couldn't have wished for a better gig than that. It took me all around New Zealand, opening Lotto stores everywhere. And I had 3 different co-hosts in the period. Did it by myself for a while till I could settle on Maurice Weepani, who was the last lass that I did it with. And she was a fun girl to work with too. She had a lot of nice girls.
After that, I've lost track of Doug Harvey. What happened after that, Doug?
Well, Lotto took the draw from Auckland down to Wellington, and for personal reasons, I didn't want to go and live in Wellington at the time. I also had work up here in Auckland, and I didn't want to go to Wellington to live. They tried to fly me down to do the gig. The flight out of Wellington was too early. The last flight out was too early. It meant I had to stay overnight. I was married with some young children. I didn't want to spend all weekend away from them every weekend. In the end, I basically said,
"That's enough.
I can't sign the contract. I don't want to sign the contract." So I went. They said, "Well, what can we do? You've done so well for us. You've got 5 more months to go on your contract. But do you want some training of anything?" I said, "Yes. Send me away and teach me how to be a TV producer." So I went away and went to school to learn how to direct and produce and edit television, and it set me up for my future.
Then you went to Australia.
Then I went to Australia. I went to Australia after I had a nasty accident.
Oh, tell us about the accident.
It was so public.
Because we've heard a lot of rumours about this particular accident.
There was a lot of
one of the rumours that does concern you, you did have a fall, but then there's some funny people going around saying that you might have jumped. Is that... let's dispel that rumour, shall we?
Very quickly, the fall was a total accident. It was a little foolish on my behalf, but I was half asleep when I was doing it. I'd been asleep and it started to rain. And I went to the lounge and the window was wide open in the lounge. I was living on the beach in Mission Bay virtually, and the sea breeze was getting up and it was starting to rain quite hard. And the window was open and everything was getting wet in the lounge.
Yeah.
So I wanted to close the windows and it wouldn't close, it was jammed. And there was a repairs and maintenance ledge outside this window. So I'd put my feet out to get it. I couldn't quite reach the window, so I jumped out totally on the ledge. I'm saying it was this wide. It was workable. But unfortunately, I had bare feet. I just got out of bed. It had wet paint, which was very slippery, and I went down on one knee, bounced, and went over the edge. And I hung on for grim death on this ledge, literally like this. I don't know if you can see that, but straight up there, and to the point where you can see the photos of me in critical care, where all my fingernails are black. From hanging on.
You were hanging. How long did you hang on for?
I wouldn't know. Yeah. I remember it being very painful, and thinking I'm going to have to let go.
And if you did let go, you thought I could die here.
Didn't cross my mind. I'm 3 stories up. I think a good chance I'm going to be okay. All I could think of was don't put anything out. Don't put a leg or hand out. It'll snap off. Try and relax. Yeah. But it was too late for that. I'd passed out. My fingers gave way. I don't recall that happening, but my fingers gave way, and there was the same ledge again on the second floor below.
You probably hit that.
My chin hit that, smashed all my bottom of my mouth and my jaw in 5 places, and threw me backwards. So I was unconscious at that point, so which is probably pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good.
And I ended up on some outdoor patio furniture on the ground floor apartment's patio, and it was the chair. A pot plant that saved my life.
Really?
There was a little shrub and a pot plant sitting on the patio, and as I went flying backwards, my body twisted slightly to one side to my left, and I went down, and the pot hit me right here, just above my hip bone, and under my arm was a perfect diameter, and in the perfect place. It compressed into me, tore my spleen away, tore my left kidney out. And just missed my spine by millimetres. Didn't touch the spine, but I compacted in. So I had some internal injuries that were quite disastrous, and a smashed face, and a broken thumb from where my arm hit the deck. But apart from that, I was okay. It took me a year. It took me a year to come right, and
you must have remembered waking up in hospital. Of course, that was your first conscious thing after that.
More or less, I remember screaming as I was being admitted because they couldn't. I was screaming in the ambulance, and I remember the streetlights going flashing past, still conscious, and screaming in agony. It was horrendous pain. I apparently screamed the place down. And
they gave you,
I don't remember. They couldn't give you. They can't give you anything when you've got internal injuries. The medics, the paramedics, they can't give you any painkillers or anything till the doctor sees you. So they just try and calm you down as best they can, and they can't even give you a Panadol. That would have worked. But I was admitted that night. I remember basically a bearded man in my face doing something to me, and that was the last thing I remember. And I woke up 6 days later in critical care. Opened right up and lying there, my family and friends around me, and I couldn't talk because I was wired and poked and everything. But I could write down things.
Did you see any white light?
Yes.
You did? That's interesting.
Everyone asks me that. And you know what I thought it might have been? Your brain, when you hit the ground, you have a nasty shock to your system.
Yeah.
Your wiring goes internally. And to the point where your brain gets completely scrambled and everything just goes white. Just gets
like your television set. Sometimes it goes to white.
That's right. It just goes white momentarily. And then it fades back because I kept my eyes open. Because all I could see was white. And I could feel rain on my face. And I was in no pain at that point, but I could feel white. Looking up, and I could feel, and then all of a sudden the white just dissolved, and I could see the rain falling through the moonlight onto my face. And then the pain started, and I heard someone yell out, "I found his watch, it's over here."
You heard that. What I was asking
but the thing, you said about the rumours.
That you went anywhere that made you feel that there was an afterlife or anything like that?
No, I'm sorry, I can't be that interesting.
No. A lot of people do tell that story. So
no,
I was
I didn't.
Just checking with you.
No, I
that's,
didn't.
Some years ago now, isn't it?
Yeah, that was 1993, 94.
Yeah. So, and it's been you were fully recovered by what year?
I was fully recovered by mid-95.
Mid-95.
Yeah.
2 years it took you to...
Yeah.
And you've been...
But I was on my back for a long time, looking out a lounge French door, and watching the same tree every day, and watching leaves grow on twigs, and watching the same bird arrive and sit there and sing. And that moved me to the point where so much that it took me a long time even to use fly spray on a fly. I didn't want anything to die.
Yeah.
I saw things living that I would never noticed before.
Well, that's what I was really trying to get at before, was how has it changed you spiritually, in the sense of how precious life is? That's what I was really trying to get at before.
You appreciate every day more, and you appreciate your friends and other people. You don't realise how fast you're going in life until you're stopped, and against your wishes, and you're dead still. All of a sudden, everything catches up to you. You notice things you never knew were there, like the little bird in the tree, and I believed everything had a purpose in life, and it needed to be given life. And your friends are important to you,
So Doug Harvey, the young, progressive, young man, ambitious, you go for it. You're going to make it, and of course you miss so much, don't you, in that process?
You do.
And in some ways it's a wake-up call, isn't it?
It is. It slows you down, and I was quite happy to be slowed down because I enjoyed it. I loved it. It was fantastic. Slow down, and they say, smell the roses, smell the coffee, which is exactly what I did. And I have that philosophy today now too. I don't rush around a lot anymore. Not so much. I'm getting older, too old to do it, I guess. But I don't rush into things like I would. You're not impetuous anymore. You're not. I'm hungry for work. I'm hungry for what I do. I love what I'm doing. I'm passionate about what I'm doing, and I'm a very creative person. I know that, and I bleed myself of it all the time. But I don't rush it.
It's a fascinating story, isn't it? I mean, wow. I mean, to go through what you went through, certainly a life-changing accident, wasn't it? So now you went to Australia, of course, and you've lived there. But when are you going to return to little old New Zealand? Your home, links with your home.
Look, I'm really fond of New Zealand so much that I can't stay in Australia and live too much longer. It's been kind to me, but my heart and my love of life and people is
still
in New Zealand. In New Zealand, I've been there 17 years. I've done very well over there, from no one knowing who I was to get where I am over there. And but it's not long before I come out. I've got to wind up what I'm doing and come back and make a life back here again.
Oh, good on you, Doug. It'll be great to have you back.
Thank you, John.
And you are a classic baby boomer, and what a privilege to have you on the program.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You represent exactly what this program's all about.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.